Hi, it's Simon, this is Better Creating, and this is my guide on how to collect clippings, quotes, and other great ideas quickly and easily straight into a Notion second brain. So from Kindle highlights to custom web clipping forms and podcast summaries and the rest, this will help you make sense of your notes. Now, you might be a student or a writer or researcher, maybe you're a creator like me. I reckon you'll love this if you just have to collect ideas and then you really want to link those things you discover back to the project you're working on the moment you discover them. So I'm going to break down how I do this in my Notion Life OS template to organize notes and clippings, the third-party extensions that I swear by for quickly capturing things, super easy, and most importantly, how to ensure that you link your notes back to the tasks and projects that will actually result in that meaningful output. And of course, thank you to Shortform, my favorite book summary tool that integrates with Notion, for sponsoring this video. Whilst this is going to be a great one-off video for you Notion users who want to capture ideas in a safe place, it's also a handy step-by-step guide to using my complete Notion Life OS template as well. And the previous video in this series actually covers taking personal notes, meeting notes, that kind of stuff in digital notebooks. So you might like to jump to watch that video first and then come back here. Finally, if you are new to the channel, make sure you do check out my Notion Life OS templates below and the Notion playlists for the best templates and tutorials to help you get organized using Notion, along with some other great tech to make your life better. You can find links in the description, but let's just say I've spent years building my ultimate Notion setups so that you can fast track to yours with a bit of support from me. So in my Life OS template, I'm going to demonstrate how I'm taking knowledge and clippings into a Notion system. We go into my main dashboard, which is a synced block that will show up on all the main dashboards. We'll see under Organise, we have notebooks and also a knowledge hub. So you could put all of your notes and clippings into one of these two databases. You could put all your meeting notes and all your clippings from the web and podcast, quotes and Kindle highlights into either of these. But I personally really like separating things. So I have notebooks for my own personal notes on different things in here. And then in the knowledge hub, I will keep all the clippings, things like books and quotes and various things like that. It's up to you. See my previous video for information on the notebooks database in this series. You can learn more about how that works there. But if you want to put it all in one single database, I would recommend using the knowledge hub in this template. And the reason is you can use it to do a lot of different things, including highlights and stuff like that from the web. So it's a much more usable thing for that. But check out that other video if you want to. But this video is focusing on how to collect and gather clippings, articles, and knowledge from the outside world, bring it into a central hub, a knowledge hub in Notion, and then apply it to meaningful output. And that's actually all based on the Para system by Tiago Forte. We'll come back to the Para dashboard in a little bit around projects, resources, areas, archives. These are essentially groups of information or areas of your life where you can link things like knowledge and projects together so that you're able to look by a category of your life, essentially. Let's jump back to the knowledge hub and I'll give you a quick tour of how I'm using it. So this is my dashboard and it is a set of four or a number of filtered views of my knowledge database. So the first one is an inbox for all the new clippings. And if I click on this and I show database title, you'll see that it's linked to the knowledge database. And the knowledge database is essentially a master database with lots of different views of all the stuff. You can jump to that and use it. My system view shows you all of the programming that's gone into it. And it will also show you the types of columns that may be hidden in other views. I've got things like a date added report, which is a formula, basically says when something was added. It has a report on how many weeks old a clipping might be. So if you wanted to see those, you would just go to properties and you would make sure that you found report, showed it where you wanted to, but it's currently right there. Pretty cool. So the knowledge hub is in these little drop down toggles. If you don't like that, you can just delete them. But essentially I do it by doing this. I would essentially have done / table and selected a table view and then selected the knowledge database, and then each view is filtered by that. So if I undo what I've just done, this is essentially that, and you'll see that this, if I now hide the database title, is an inbox, and my inbox essentially filters by something being a new clipping. So anything that's new will use a new default template which will be called a new clipping, and you can see it's set up with that status there, which is cool. And it will mean that on the filters, we have one rule where the knowledge is either new clipping or knowledge status is empty. So basically, if it's not been given a new status, it stays in the inbox, and you can edit your filters using that button there. Then below that, I've got a currently consuming view where I can see I'm currently looking at Essentialism by Greg McKeown, and that is simply filtered by this, live and consuming. This filter here of in progress is on reading list or bibliography of inspiration. Those tags are essentially, in my view, that I have a waiting list, reading list, which is essentially filtered by knowledge status is on reading list. And then I have my bibliography of inspiration is essentially anything that I've kept that doesn't just go into an archive. So stuff I want to keep in the system, linked to projects and areas and stuff that I'm doing, but hasn't been archived out of the system. And on that note, to archive stuff out of my system, I would simply click into the item and under status, go to archived, and that would clear it from these views, and you would find it turning up in the Para dashboard in my system under archive and under knowledge and clippings. So anything that's been archived would go in there. So those are the views, but let's talk about how this inbox system works. As I said in the last video in this series, perhaps the truest meaning of a second brain is a place to hold ideas and information so that your brain doesn't have to. And that is the perfect explanation for a knowledge database such as this. Curating one of these will mean that you'll always be able to have a place to drop that reference, quote, or idea and know that it will come back to you at the right place and at the right time later on. And most importantly, a knowledge database therefore can be linked to a project, filtered by that project, so that you just see everything you need that may be relevant to it when you need it. It's at your fingertips. And this is how to do it. So there are a couple of ways to do that. The most exciting ways, using things like Save to Notion or Readwise, I'll show you in a moment, but let's do the manual version first. There's a button here called New Clipping. You might also find that on the main homepage down here, New Clipping, and that essentially will add a knowledge item with all the things needed and pop it up, that little button. And also you can see your inbox, by the way, for knowledge and clipping, also on the main dashboard in the to process section. Let's do it on the knowledge dashboard. If I were to add a new clipping, it creates it. I'm gonna call this one journaling prompts. The most simple way to add clippings, and this might be a note as well. I think the other versions are better, but let's see. I can give it a category. For example, it's an article. It can have a quick summary. Great Stoic journaling prompts, there you go. And I can give it a subject tag, so it might go under personal growth. I might want to put it under stoicism. I might want to put it under something else that you add yourself. You can just continue to do that. And then the essential thing would be a URL or the actual content into the page itself. So the most obvious way to do that is just to go to the page, copy the URL and drop it in, or you might want to copy all of this stuff, drop it in here. But I don't think that's the best way to do things. So let's look at that in a moment. Either way, you put it in here and then you can do things like relate it to an area. So areas are gray in my system, resources. So it might be that this is going to go in my information resource under productivity and organization, but I also think in the area of my life, it relates to health. So I'm going to link it to health. And that will just mean that when I go to health, this is now the areas and resources database, you can see under area clippings, journaling prompts has appeared. That is what that system does. Really powerful, more on that later on. So there you go. It's in my inbox under journaling prompts. And to filter it from the inbox, I would simply place it, and I'm actually gonna, before we do that, call this version 1, because we're gonna demo some better ways in a minute. And I would simply put that into live and consuming, and then you'll see under articles, there it is, it's dropped in. Great, well that's cool, isn't it? That's how we will clear things from the system. And again, or I could just, for example, go, I don't need this anymore, and that's just gonna be archived, and it goes into the archive. But there's a better way, my friends, and that involves this, Save to Notion. So I'm gonna jump to Chrome, and we're going to import this in a slightly more pleasing way. If you jump into Chrome and look up Notion Web Clipper extension, you can install this for Safari, Firefox, or Chrome. So I don't think this is the best version, by the way. I think this is the best version, Save to Notion, but we'll do that in a moment. So if I'm gonna add this in, then I have the little Notion Web Clipper installed up here. I'm gonna click on this. I can pick the database I want it to go to. So we're gonna go database, there it is. you can leave it like that. That's the workspace. I click Save Page, and then if I click Open in Notion, there it is. You'll see it just as a new clipping. But it didn't do a lot. I didn't fill anything in. I have to add the detail to it, but there is all the information. We will therefore see it in there. The problem with the Notion web clipper is you can't fill these other columns in. Things like the category that it is, you can't add the quick summary, I can't link it to an area or resource, add subject tags, etc, etc. I personally prefer to use the Save to Notion Chrome extension. So I'm going to add this to Chrome, add extension. I can then go up to this little button, make sure that we can pin it. There's our Save to Notion pinned. I'm going to move that along because I tend to use that most. And if we now jump to our Art of Journaling view, click on the system here, I want to sign up, and now I can add a form. I just deleted it, to be honest, because I wanted to show you again. So I'm going to add a form. We can select the database in here, and I want it to be my knowledge database in my Life OS. And then what you're able to do is essentially from here build a form out. So I can go page title for the title, great. Content image is the main image, the web page content. I want to select the template as new clipping. I'm going to add more fields, and then here you'll see everything that is in your system. So I'm going to go down and add everything that I want to be in there. Subject tags, I want it to have cover as the main image. I want the knowledge status in there. I'm going to move that up, and you could select this to something that you've actually read, or I'm just going to preset it to new clipping. And then most importantly for me is adding these related projects and related area. And then I also have, if you are using my bundle package, I use this for related content. So that's, if I jump back to here, that's anything in the Creative OS. So projects that I'm working on within here, like how I organize my life in Notion, a video I might be filming, I can then link stuff to that. So we're going to see it turn up in our Knowledge Hub now. So let's first of all save and go back. So then to add something, you would click, it sets it up, look at that, there's the image. It's added the title, it's already adding all this information in, and then I can put my quick summaries in. I'm going to relate it to the area of health, which I can also search like you would in Notion. Really fantastic, and it saves it into the database. So if I now click Open Page in Notion, we would see it, but I don't need to do that actually. I'm going to close that, jump back, and oh look, there it is. And the difference with this, I think, is huge using Save to Notion. We can jump into it, we'll see all the information that's dropped in as we would want. It's detailed everything in there, and it's a much better way to do things. How cool is that? Now, it's worth saying that in my Life OS system, I also have things like notebooks, so you could do the same in notebooks. But one of my favorites in here is I've got this wish list, which is essentially another database where I collect information, which is like gifts and coffee paraphernalia, right? So I can add things into there. So using Save to Notion, if I click into here, I might want to add a new form and then select my wish list, and I can create a new form in here, and I'm going to add like the price. I want to add the URL. Already added, great. Save and go back, and now I've got a way of saving stuff to my wish lists as well. So what about if you're using a mobile phone? This is a very nice new one. I've just upgraded, more on the channel soon. So subscribe. Now, a lot of you will probably be using your phone to look at stuff, and that's all very well and good. So for example, I've recently found this Chartsbase service that I'm going to try out, which looks amazing to add charts to my Notion system, and I want to remember it in my knowledge base. So I'm going to click upload. You click on options on the new iOS 17. You also have options for web archives, PDF, automatics. I'm just going to leave it as it is, but I want to save this to Notion, and there is Notion. So you can click that, and this will essentially do the same stuff that you might be surprised about. So I then want to just find my Knowledge Hub, and then if I save it like that and go back into the page, we should see under knowledge that it's dropped it in. And there it is on my homepage. Okay, it's not got all the Save to Notion formatting, but it has dropped it in from my phone in the same way, dropped all the information in. So that's Save to Notion and the Notion web clipper. I really recommend those. But what about if you want to go a little bit further? Well, we can import information from a service called Readwise, and Readwise is a brilliant service which will gather all of your tweets, podcast information from things like Snipped, articles that you might have read, books from things like your Kindle, and what's really cool about this is you can import from those different places. So for example, I currently use Snipped for podcasts, so I could set that up and connect it if I wanted to, and then any podcast quotes that I click on Snipped can then be fed into Readwise, and most excitingly about Readwise is you can also export highlights to Notion. All you would do is configure this. I'm going to reconnect it because I've been logged out. Connect Notion to Readwise. It would set it all up. You would then have automatic exports, all of these things. You can select the items you want, whatever you need to do, and anything that's in there will then get exported out to Notion automatically. That's just an example of that. Now what's really cool about this is you're then able to build a full system that then feeds back into your Notion database. Now this is a bit more of an involved setup using Readwise, but it's worth checking it out, and I will cover it in a future video on how to connect it. But essentially, if we jump into my main page here, and I'm going to go to my old LifeOS system where I have had this set up. If I go to the knowledge bank, you'll see all of the information that has gone in from Readwise. And what Readwise does when you set it up is it creates its own database in Notion that you would then essentially have to swap out for the knowledge bank. So it might be for Readwise content, you just want to create the database, name it your Readwise database, and it might be that you then want to add a new property and add a relation and then link that into your system from there. But what's really cool about setting this up is it will give you like last highlighted, last synced. It will do its own special views, and such as like peopling the author page and all of that. So what I've done in my LifeOS template is kind of echo that in the knowledge hubs. So essentially the job would be to rebuild these views based on that database that Readwise creates. So it's not an easy transition to do, but Readwise is really worth checking out if you want to do much more kind of work on importing quotes and ideas of stuff that you've read. It's super powerful, so check it out. More in a future video on how to integrate Readwise with Notion, but I've got an older video that I'll link in the description if you want the basics. So let's talk for a minute about videos and podcasts. My favorite service on the phone for this is Snipped. Now, Snipped is a brilliant service for a couple of reasons. I'm listening currently to this one here, Yuval Noah Harari on the Lex Fridman podcast, and I can do things like, first of all, using AI, get summaries of them, and I can create snips of a specific part of it. It's pretty cool. So you can do things like get the transcript, the title, and the takeaways. I've been using this on a number of different things. So if I go back out, you can just do that when you're listening and it will drop that into your pages. If I look under my snips, you'll see here, for example, I've got 5 AI notes on finding financial freedom. This was really cool. And it will just give you all of this amazing information about a specific detail. Now that's all cool, but how do you link it back into the system? Well, if I jump into my Readwise account, you'll see under Connect, I can do import highlights, and I'm going to connect Snipped. So I want to go into my account down here, go to settings, I can click export and sync, and you can actually sync directly to Notion. So I'm going to connect to my Notion account, manage access to Notion, log in. So I can then select the pages I want it to be able to edit, and I'm actually just going to go into my LifeOS, and all I want to give it access to is my knowledge database. Allow access, and then what you can do is select a Snipped. It will create a database for your stuff to go. But personally, I would avoid this one if you use Readwise. And the great thing about Readwise is you can actually then link everything into Readwise and then into Notion. That for me is a much better option. And when it comes to videos, I would stick to Save to Notion. If I jump onto YouTube, and let's say that I wanted to check out Bite Review's new iPad desk setup video, rather than kind of click share and save it, I'm actually going to use Save to Notion. I'm going to create a new form, which is going to go into the knowledge database. And what I could do is within my knowledge database is create a new template. I'm going to duplicate this and call this one new video. I'm going to make it live and consuming because I want it to do that. The subject tag, I'm going to give the category as video and change this to a different icon. So maybe it is a YouTube play button. Actually, let's change the color of that to this. And then what I can do is jump into here and make the template new video, save that form. So now call it save video and then save the page. And if we jump back into here, we should now see in this area under videos, the iPad video page. And the great thing about this is it actually drops it into the page and I can play it within Notion. Now there are 4 other really fantastic apps that I swear by to kind of create my wider personal knowledge management system, integrating with a Notion system like this, my Life OS, or any kind of knowledge capture notes taking database like my Knowledge Hub. First of all, we've talked about Readwise as the kind of hub for all of that. A future video, I'll go into more detail about using Readwise for this, but the Readwise Reader is a really great place to start. This essentially allows you to read things later and do web highlighting directly in it, and then that all feeds back into your Readwise system and therefore into your Notion hub if you want to through that integration. So you can do web highlighting, you can look at Twitter threads, there are lots of means of kind of highlighting within the reader and keeping those clippings together in one place. The next one is Command Browser. If you want to keep things simple and perhaps go directly to Notion, this also integrates with Readwise and is another great way to kind of organize information. I really like it on the iPad as a way of browsing content, and again, creating journals and selections of clippings that will all sync back into that Notion database when you need it to. Number 3 is another amazing Chrome extension, which I've only just discovered, called ChatGPT to Notion. So if you use ChatGPT and this language learning modules to kind of maybe accelerate your work, maybe you want to use that instead of Notion AI, this is great. You can link stuff and save it into Notion, into that knowledge database, and into your notes or knowledge database you could put all of the dialogues that you've had. So if you're using it to write, it's a really nice way to then add that into your notebooks. One of my favourite apps of all time around learning and speeding up and making the act of collecting knowledge easy is Shortform, and they have sponsored today's video. Now, if you don't know, Shortform is my favourite go-to book summary app. I think it's the world's best book summary app that summarises non-fiction books. So whatever your interest, whether you're into entrepreneurship, design, productivity, self-development, there's a fantastic library of summaries of books. But the great thing about Shortform is it's not just a book summary tool. For example, at the moment, I've been recapping Building a Second Brain by Tiago Forte, the very basis of my Notion Life OS system. And what's really cool about these summaries is they're really useful if you want to go back and remember key ideas from a book you've previously read, or perhaps you haven't read Building a Second Brain and you're not sure if you want to invest in it. Well, you can jump in and you can take a little look at a full one-page summary and see if you think the book is for you before you go deeper. But more than that, what's really cool is they will also give you exercises that link to the book, so they can help you do interactive lessons and stuff around the subject matter in the book. And alongside the one-page summaries, there are chapter by chapter summaries of the key ideas. You can also do things like highlight your pages and make notes within them. And the really cool thing about this, if you're a Notion user, is if you jump through to Readwise, you'll also see that there is a short form integration. So if I click on connect in Readwise, I can sync my short form highlights and notes into Readwise, or use it to do it directly into Notion as well. Really powerful stuff. So if you like the sound of that and you think that Shortform could help you out as much as it's helped me to improve your knowledge in areas like self-development, entrepreneurship, productivity, and all the rest, make sure to give Shortform a go using my link below. They're offering 20% off the annual subscription, and you'll get that first free go at it to see if it's for you. check it out, and thank you to Shortform for sponsoring this video. So the final step then is to link what you capture back to projects. Now that, for an example, for me is often YouTube video scripts where I want to reference them, or it might be to file notes and clippings in an area or resource. So an area is linking it to an area of your life, and resources are things on specific subjects as per the Power Up method, so that you're then able to look at things in a filtered and organized way. Here's how I do it in my Notion system. So here's how to truly make the most of your knowledge and clippings. We want to be able to link them back to things. So we have, for example, our new clippings from Chartbase here. I want to go across, I'm going to jump into that view. I simply want to link it to a project, and if I do that and click through to the YouTube channel that I've linked it to, I can see it down here under resources and clippings here, Chartbase. There you go. So that's really helpful. So if you're working on a project and you want references to work around your to-do list that might be happening within that project, you're able to see them within that page. Now it might be that you want to link it to an area or resource, for example, under the resource around productivity and organization. And if I click through to the resource and open that page up in, say, Centipede, I can see under a resource, this doesn't actually contain anything itself. It's a set of relations that links back to filtered views of the other databases. So areas and resources in my Life OS will do things like show you any journal entries that have linked to this resource page. You will see any notes like learning Notion that I've put in my notes database. We did that in the last video. And we can see my clippings directly related from the knowledge and clippings database. Pretty cool, right? The other thing you might want to do is link this to an area. This is an area of your life. So let's say it was under content creation or personal development. I'm going to put this under. And if I click through to personal development, I'm going to open that up. You can see where it is. It's the areas and resources database, and you'll see under this all the projects related to the area or the contacts that might be related to the area. You can see the resources. So this is one database, so we could see the whole resource we've just looked at, or we could specifically see it also linked directly to the area of life under clippings as well. Pretty cool, right? So that is just a means of filtering your information in a knowledge management system like this. And if we drop my main menu open and go to the Power dashboard I was talking about earlier, that is where in my system you can find the resources or the areas we're talking about. I've created reports saying how many clippings there are, how many notes there are. So this related clippings is for the knowledge hub database, and this is for the notes database, which we looked at in the previous video. And that is the power of areas and resources. Now, if this is too much for you, don't worry about it, don't use it. It's not important. It's just a means of being able to look by category essentially and simplify how you organize your information. Final link, other than projects, areas and resources, you might want to use my Creative OS. Now, if you use Notion to organize regular projects, content creation, maybe it's to create digital products that you want to put out into the world and track, that's where I track my work in here. And so what this is a database of things like videos. So for example, if I open up this how I organize my life in Notion video, let's say it was a planned video, this is an example. I can put maybe the income that might relate to it. This is just an example. I can link it to sponsors and brands that I might be working with. I can do all the writing around the project and all of that. But most importantly, there it is, are clippings and notes that could be linked to it. So let's remember this, how I organize my life in Notion. Let's say I want to put that chart thing from the Knowledge Hub into it. Maybe when I clipped it, I went, this is great for that video, right? So all I would have done is when I added it, I would have, under related content, linked it to the video, how I organize my life in Notion. So it's now linked there, and the joy of this, if let's say I was developing a video and doing research, clipping things into the knowledge bank using Save to Notion as I did it, I would then be able to put that into live and consuming. I would, when I was working on the video, be able to jump into the live video I'm working on, open it up, and in that page, see all of the references. So in my opinion, just setting up a database with areas and resources that you can link information from a knowledge database to is an amazing way to be able to easily find that stuff later down the line, particularly when you've gathered a really big database of info and you want to dive into your second brain and find what you need. It's a really powerful tool. So this is more of a long game thing, but well worth trying. And on that note, if you'd like to learn more about that entire Notion workspace that I've developed across projects, notes, tasks, goal setting, finance, content creation, habit tracking, and all the rest, don't forget you can check out a full in-depth tour of this complete life operating system that I've built completely in Notion and download it at bettercreating.com. See the links below. So I've created a powerful and easy to use system that is truly all in one place. It's designed around David Allen's seminal productivity workflow from Getting Things Done, Tiago Forte's Power Method, and it is really the ultimate second brain that I genuinely use every day to organise my life. There's also a load of supporting playlists of guide videos, a user community Discord where you can get further help and talk to other users, and I'm planning further community only resources. So this really is a great bet. And the great thing is you can check them out with a proper returns policy too. So jump over to bettercreating.com and check them out. So next I recommend you check out some other great tech that I reckon really makes your life easier here, or you can find more of my Notion Live OS and Notion related content down here. It would be awesome if you subscribed. If you haven't, amazing if you left a like and a comment, and I'd better get back to creating. Okay, bye.